All right, thank you for your attention, Minoka. I will call the Select Committee on Florida Polytechnic University meeting to order. If you could take the roll, please.
Okay, Chair Koontz.
Here.
Governor Link. Here. Governor Morton. Here. Chair Koontz, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to take a few minutes to give us a little history, because some of us in the room, on the board, are new to this, and talk about the purpose of this committee and where we've come from and where hopefully we're going. In November 9th, 2011, at our meeting then, the board approved a plan for transitioning the University of South Florida Polytechnic campus in Polk County into a separate university upon its achievement of separate regional accreditation. At that time, the board also created this select committee with Governor Hussaini as chair and Governors Tripp and Beard as members to help oversee and guide USF Polytechnic to achieve separate university status. Then, as you know, in 2012, the legislature created the Florida Polytechnic University in Section 1004.345 Florida statute, signed into law by Governor Scott, and that statute requires that by December 31st, 2016, a very key date, December 31st, 2016, that the university shall do several things. One, achieve accreditation from the Commission on Colleges of the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, initiate new programs in STEM fields, seek discipline-specific accreditation for programs, attain a minimum FTE of 1,244 with a minimum 50% of that FTE in STEM fields and 20% in programs related to those fields, complete facilities and infrastructure, and finally have the ability to administer financial aid, admissions, student support, information, technology, and finance and accounting with an internal audit function. We have just distributed to all of the board members the actual law itself. It's short, it's one page, and I would suggest and request that all the board members be familiar with this law that we've distributed today. After the creation of Florida Polytechnic University as Florida's 12th institution in the state university system, this select committee was renamed and repurposed to help guide the new university towards accreditation. Upon his election to chair of the Board of Governors, Governor Hussaini reconstituted this committee, naming Governor Link, Governor Morton, and myself as members. Today we're providing Florida Polytechnic University with an opportunity to update this select committee on the following aspects of implementation: curriculum, planning and development, student recruitment strategies and response rate, scholarships and other student support, faculty and staff recruitment, and budget and facilities. And I would say, I think, just generally update us, and as we go forward, marching towards December 31st, 2016, I think what's important is we stay focused in our committee, and I hope that all board members will feel free to participate. We stay focused on the legislation and make sure that we are tracking or hearing from the representatives from the university that we are tracking on a path to achieve the targets that the legislation requires, so that we don't find ourselves in a situation mid-2016 all of a sudden finding that we're not going to have a university that has met the requirements of the legislation. So the purpose of this update and future updates will be to hear reports from the university, but to stay focused on the legislation to ensure that we are hearing from university officials that they will be fully compliant with the law come December 31st, 2016. And so thank you, Governor Hussaini, for your work on this committee in the past, and it's going to be an interesting process to learn for all of us, I'm sure, and I appreciate Governor Morton and Governor Link's participation in this committee. Before we actually get into the presentation, recognizing that none of the three of us were members of the committee. We do need to approve the minutes of the last committee, and so I don't know.
So moved.
Thank you. Sir Governor Morton, have you reviewed the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, so we will accept the minutes of the meeting of May 23rd, 2012. And now at this point, we have Ava Parker's empty chair. I don't know where Ava is. There she is, over there. But also want to recognize Rob Goodell, who's the chairman of the board of Polytechnic, here with us today. And so I don't know, Ava, if you're going to start, or Rob, if you have anything you'd like to say, but we appreciate you being here. We appreciate you keeping us focused on hearing a report on how we're tracking in regards to the legislation. And so, Ava, I'll turn it over to you and take us down any path you'd like in order to keep us focused on that goal.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I don't know, Mr. Chairman, did you want to say anything? Thank you very much. We also have another representative from our Board of Trustees I'd like to recognize, and that's Frank Martin, who also is a former member of the Board of Governors and is the Board of Governors appointee to the Board of Trustees for Florida Poly. So thank you very much, Mr. Martin, for being here. Before I start to provide an update for the plans for Florida's 12th State University, I would like to at least identify some of the folks who are available to respond to any questions or concerns that you might have. And just note that we do have several members of our faculty and our staff who are in the audience here with us. But those who are specifically here to participate with me and respond to your concerns is our provost, Dr. Darkazali, who happens to be a PhD mechanical engineer and former college president. We have Dr. Nasser, who's also a PhD civil engineer, who joins us from Cal State Long Beach with over 25 years. He's a full professor there. We have our Director of Enrollment, Scott Rhodes. Scott has over 14 years of enrollment experience, and someone who I credit with a lot of the fact that we've been able to be so successful with the enrollment we've had thus far with the university. So certainly we have other folks who are here, but those are specifically, I wanted you to know who they are so they can help respond to any questions that you might have that I may not be able to respond to. Thank you so much for providing the history that kind of brings us up to date to where we are. Certainly I lived a lot of that, and that actually kind of maybe takes me on to slide number 3, which you did identify some of the milestones that are part of the enabling statute that created the university. And we'll talk about many of those things, but one thing I think I can deal with even as I stand right now, because there's a question about initiating and developing, new STEM programs and ensuring that at least 50% is in STEM and 20% is in STEM related. And what you'll see from our presentation today is that we're building a university that's 100% STEM, so I feel really comfortable that we're well on our way to meet many of the benchmarks that are established in the enabling legislation. I know that some of this information we shared before, but I thought it was important, particularly since we have a new committee, to talk about the mission and vision that's been developed for the university. I think that when we talk about what we've built, certainly the legislation was clear that this is a STEM-focused institution that we were building, and as the addition to the system. But as a Board of Trustees, as in my support role for them, they actually developed a mission which says that, in addition to STEM, it's applied research and a real focus on industry engagement and a real focus on research that involves solving real-world problems. And there's a real technology focus for the institution. I think if I step back and look at how it is that we're going to complement what I think is a great system, it is that we're building an institution that has a real technology focus, and that is one of the ways that we will distinguish ourselves in the STEM area. What I often say is that we've taken the T and the E of STEM and put that as the primary focus of Florida Poly. As far as the vision for the institution, I think that the idea is that our institution will in fact supply Florida with a great addition to its high-tech workforce. That is, there's a real note that we think that attracting that type of industry is important to the growth of our state, and that we're putting together a curriculum to ensure that our graduates can add to that. And so not only will they be in a position to add to or go to a company, but we're looking to develop or produce graduates who will innovate and build and be the next great thing in the technology field. have a couple of slides that I could share with you that's that is taken from data that was developed by the Board of Governors. And this is just kind of, again, to show kind of where we are as it relates to STEM. I know there's this big push by the system, and I think you can see why. If you look at the numbers, it shows that with our graduation rates, we're still outpacing the number of graduates in non-STEM fields versus STEM fields, and that's what this slide is designed to show in the baccalaureate area. That is that the non-STEM graduates are still like at 6,048, and the STEM baccalaureate degrees are at 2,409. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that even in the graduate area, that while we are doing better, it's still that the non-STEM degrees are outpacing the STEM degrees. And this is, again, taken from data that was created or developed by the Board of Governors. I thought it was good to have a conversation with you about our budget and kind of where we are and how it is that we're building the institution. I think it was good for you to take a look at kind of where we were for 2012, 2013. And you can see that particularly since I started like mid that budget year, because I started in December of 2012, there was a real focus of kind of really only spending and growing as we needed to grow and spend. And so we ended up at the end of the fiscal year of spending only $3.5 million of the $22 million budget, at least on the operating expenditures. And what we were able to do, based upon the legislation that developed the institution, was to take the $17 million and pour that into the completion of the Innovation, Science, and Technology building. So with the special dispensation that we had with the development of the university, we did within last fiscal year use that $17 million toward the completion of that building. If we go down to the current fiscal year, where for this budget year, we're at a $28 million budget. As of December of this year, we're right at about $5.4 million. And again, the idea is that as we're growing the institution, is kind of grow as we need so we can ensure that we have the funds available to develop the institution. I think that we see that by the end of the fiscal year, we'll be right at $22 million. And basically what you'll find, and Dr. Zali will talk about this, that as we've added faculty, we'll hire some who could actually start walking around and working right now, and hiring others who won't start until the next fiscal year, with the idea that we didn't want to really start bringing folks on until there were things for them to actually do. So we certainly had to have some faculty in place to build the curriculum for the institution to attract the students, but we're very smartly kind of building and ensuring that when folks actually come on campus that they can jump right into their responsibilities and not have to sit around and wait. So what we anticipate is that at the end of this fiscal year we'll be at $22 million, and that we have about $4 million that again we will be able to put toward the development of additional capital expenditures for the institution. I think that one of the biggest issues, and one that I would like to spend some time talking about, is accreditation. That is that it was important as a part of the legislation that we develop an institution that would be accredited by SACS. And I'd like to talk to you about kind of how we view it as an institution and how we feel we're getting ready. I think I'd like to start by reminding folks that you can't get accredited until you graduate a class. So in the way that we've kind of developed the model is that we will take in transfer students as juniors and take in master students, and those students will graduate by the spring of 2016. So that would be our first graduating class, and that we're looking to meet the benchmark that's established by the legislation to be accredited by the end of the year. Now you say that in doing that, because it is that you can't get accredited until then, as we build each regulation, as we hire folks, as we build our program, each step is kind of developed with SACS in mind. And when I think about it, and I think about what SACS is, the whole idea is that it says that we want to ensure that you're providing the quality that you promised you'd give your students. So what is it that you promised them? Okay, let's see, what is it? And did you assess yourself to ensure that you did that? So I kind of take those simple steps and put that in mind, keep that in mind as we develop our programs, our regulations, and all the things that we're telling our students that we're going to do for them. So we have trainings and workshops now with our staff. We already have like a responsibility matrix, so everybody already knows this is your responsibility as it relates to the accreditation process. So already starting to write those things and keep those records that SACS will look for to ensure we're doing what we said we were going to do. We're taking advantage of the software that's out there to ensure that, that we have all the pieces in place. We've retained a consultant to work with us who kind of reads all the things that we write and kind of looks at the publications that we develop to ensure, again, that we're in line with SACS. So we feel that we're doing all that we can do. We have certainly very experienced people on our staff who've been a part of accrediting bodies before or a part of the process. We have one person who's designated who kind of has that as her primary responsibility. So everything that we could do to ensure that we will be accredited, we certainly have put those pieces in place and know that, again, as we build each brick or as we look at each regulation or as we build each program, we're building it with an idea or mind of ensuring that we will be accredited. One thing that we did is that, SACS develops different schedules. And so they have a fast-track schedule. And so what we've done is that we've kind of marked our deadlines and our benchmarks kind of against the published fast-track schedule that's been developed by SACS. One of the big things that was on the agenda for the Board of Trustees is to say, okay, what is it that we want to build? That is, what would be a complement to the system, given that we understand that we have we had 11 great universities. What is it that we can build that would be a complement, particularly given our mission of STEM? And this kind of gives you an idea of the kinds of things that the board looked at in coming up with the program that we have for the university. We kind of looked at the Department of Economic Opportunity and Workforce Florida to say, what is it that we're missing? That is, what is it that we need within our state? We studied the Enterprise Florida clusters and the targeted industries. That is that if you could, attract industries to the state, what is it that, that they want in the workforce? What is it that you develop for them so that we could be beneficial to attracting new industry? We looked at trends and student demands. That is, what are the kinds of things that are interesting students? What is it that students want? What kind of careers are they looking for? Certainly paid close attention to Polytechnic universities across the country, as well as the programs that are currently being offered within the state university system by our sister institutions. And of course, paid attention to the Board of Governors Commission on Higher Education, Access and Attainment, as it took a look at what it is that we would need as a system and how can we add to that. And at this time, what I'd like to do is to bring up Dr. Darkazali, our provost, who can talk to you about kind of what, after looking at all those things, what programs have we planned for our institution. Gazi?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We decided to have, as Ava said, two colleges, College of Engineering, College of Innovation and Technology, and under those colleges, definitely there are 6 degrees that we will be offering at the bachelor degree level and 2 degrees at the master's degree level. The selection of the programs was not to compete with the other SUS universities, to complement the need for jobs in the state, and not only the state, and to address the new technology that is available to the students at this time that we don't have. So we selected under the College of Engineering, under computer engineering degree, digital logic design, embedded system design, machine intelligence. And under the electrical engineering degree, we have control systems, digital and hybrid systems, electrodynamics, magnetics, and semiconductors. And under mechanical and industrial engineering, we have selected geometric dimensioning and tolerancing, motion intelligence, multifunctional materials, and nanotechnology. Under the College of Innovation and Technology, under advanced technology degree, we selected big data analytics, cloud virtualization, health informatics, and under science and technology management, logistic and materials and supply chain. Under the degree of computer science and information technology, we elected to go after cyber gaming and information assurance and cybersecurity. The 2 master's degrees are in engineering and in innovation technology. We did present these programs and concentrations at the CAVP Academic Coordination Project Work Group in September. And we received positive and good input from the participants at that meeting. And 2 degrees were generated some concern by the group. In order to maintain that these degrees did not conflict with other sister universities, we asked our faculty to do program analysis and comparison with the other sister universities. In addition, we retained post-secondary analytics to do an independent study of those programs. As shown in this slide, the 2 programs, the next slide, please. The 2 programs that generated some concern are one at UCF, and that's cyber gaming. And the cyber gaming program at UCF, we compared, and we have one common course between our degree and their degree. And the difference between the 2 is their concentration is on digital design media, and our concentration on really planning and strategic assessment of a game war or avoiding problems before they happen, management and programming and engineering. So one course, common course, does not represent a conflict in interest at this point. The other program was a USF program, which is Information Assurance and Cybersecurity. Our program is a bachelor degree program. The USF program is a master's degree program. So we will complement the USF program by presenting students that will enroll in the master program. When we went to hire faculty, we decided that we will start by hiring the faculty that will develop these programs and will contribute to the subject matter. So the first advertisements and selection was concentrating on engineering and science faculty. We received 900 resumes of engineers and scientists that were interested in working for us. We reviewed all these resumes individually, myself, and other faculty and staff members. Of the 900 resumes, we selected 85 resumes that we interviewed on the phone and in person. And of those, we started hiring, and now we have 15 faculty that are on the staff. At this rate, starting with January, we are interviewing both subject matter faculty and general education faculty. So now we expanded our search because we want the physics and the math and the history and the English faculty to be interviewed now, because those people will start in August or just before August. While our faculty who were developing the program, we needed them right away. So we hired those at this point. When we went to select the faculty, we were looking at 3 different levels. Level 1 is a recent PhD graduate who's fresh, with new ideas, with a lot of energy, and wants to really get in, roll their sleeves, and work with other senior faculties and with the students. On level 2, we wanted faculty that have the experience, 6 to 8 years, that work either in a university or a research institution, government or private. And we were successful really in hiring most of our faculty in that level, because that's the level we needed now to develop the programs and to write the syllabus and to write the program description and write the course description. The third level is the professor level, on the level of somebody who has national reputation, mentoring ability, respectful in the field. And we have been, an indication, Dr. Nasser here, who came to us from University of California, Long Beach, with many years of experience, and also he's very modest because he was the chief of Caltrans, which is the transportation department in California, in charge of billions of dollars management projects. So we have two already full-time, full professor faculty on our staff. One is moving from New York and one moved from California. So we were able to really generate very good interest in the faculty. The faculty do have contracts. We are non-tenure track university. So we have contracts. We will review the faculty. The faculty will contribute to the evaluation process. And the university is very interested in their experience, is very interested in their industry relation, is very much interested in applied research and engineering. So that's and their ability to teach a class using high technology that the students now are interested in. You have faculty, you need the students. So we developed a system to recruit students that proven to be successful. We went after articulation agreements with the state colleges. We are working with them on a number of articulation agreements. We are supporting them. We're working with them on grants writing, and we wanted to have a class of transfer students of about 240 starting in August. We are encouraging the students by offering the first class of a scholarship. We are partnering with other STEM high schools, and we are doing summer programs, K-12. And we are building a beautiful new campus that the students will be more than happy to attend and be part of. Also, we are really interested in getting international students to be part of the equation, because those, when they go to their country, they will bring business to the Florida community and Florida economy. Our student requirements, I'm going to start with diversity. Up till now, we have 26% of our students who are female and 74 male. This is great for a STEM-based education. We're not satisfied with that. We want to increase that number. So we are targeting now women organizations to connect with, recruit from, and ask for their support.
Can you repeat that number for me again? I'm sorry.
26% female.
Thank you.
74 male. The diversity of the applicants and accepted students, 5% Asians, 9% African American, and 6% other, or they did not fill the background, and 80% Caucasians. To date, and this number changes every day, we have visited 184 colleges, high schools, I'm sorry. We participated in 106 college fairs, and we visited 12 of the state colleges around Florida. Our numbers for students who were interested, 6,614 as of yesterday. Of those, we received 2,064 applications. Of those applications, we have approved, at this point, 437 admittance. The number that is really exciting is out of those 437 students that we accepted, 94 paid deposits. 94. This is way above the average school, universities in the country, that you receive this many deposit at this time. We are still in January. So that's very encouraging. The grade point average on a base of 5 of the students coming to us is 3.9. The average SAT score is 1850. Repeat that, 1850. average SAT score. It's amazing. It's really amazing. So with that, I think we have a very good faculty body and a good student body to really start our year in August. I'll be happy to answer any questions later.
Yes, sir. Mr. Most recently Chair.
Thank you. A couple questions. You said that you hope to have in August 240 transfers out of a class of, I think earlier I previously heard of 500 or.
Yeah, that is correct. We'll start with 500 students.
So you expect to have 260 freshmen, and are there going to be any sophomores?
Well, the idea is that we will certainly transfer in some sophomore, juniors. The focus is to transfer in juniors. Primarily, it'll be more of a higher concentration of freshmen and junior transfers, and then some master's students as well.
So you'll have approximately 250, 260 freshman students.
That's correct.
Next August.
That's correct.
And the average SAT numbers you've been giving, are they for the incoming freshmen, or are they also for the transfer students?
For the incoming freshmen.
Okay. And how the SATs on the transfer students?
On the transfer students, I don't know. Scott, do you have that data?
For the students that are required to submit it, it's very close to that. It's right around the 1,800 mark as well.
Okay. And then finally, on the same thing, when do you have 94 paid deposits, which is you only need 250 students. When do you think you're going to know how many? When does it come hard that you know you have 250 students that are going to show up in August?
The national deposit deadline date is May 1st for all universities across the country.
And so that's when we'll know how many are coming and what the entering class is actually going to be in terms of average SATs.
And we'll also be still admitting transfer students at that time, so
Yeah, I understand.
throughout the summer.
Why are you saying 250, Dean?
Huh?
Why are you saying 250 instead of 500?
Well, 500 is the total class, and he said that 240 would be transfer, so 260 would be entering freshmen.
Correct.
And does it work the same way with those transfer students? Do they also need to put in deposits?
Yes.
And what percentage? Are the 94 that have given you the deposits, and those are all freshmen?
About 85% are freshmen.
So you only have a total of 94 out of 500, not 94 out of 260. So that's the number they have for
The total.
total, not just out of 260. Okay, that's what I was trying to understand.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? Yes, sir, Governor Morton.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation thus far. One of the things that I was thinking as a marketer, I've had some conversations with some of you, Ava, already about my relationship with a lot of high school seniors and people that I chat with, and something I've picked up with in terms of STEM, part of my own background in aeronautical engineering, has to do with what's happening with aviation in the world and what's happening with aviation here in our country. And I've recently been a recipient of a study done by Price Waterhouse. It has to do with where the fertile ground is to grow certain industries, and Florida's been identified as one of the most fertile grounds to grow aeronautical industry, if you will. The Space Coast, and recently, I think, over the past 3 or 4 years, what's happened with a reduction in our federal efforts in terms of aviation. There are still a lot of people in this state that are classically trained in aviation. I noted that there's no mention here of aeronautical engineering, and unmanned vehicles, as an example, are exploding all over this country. The federal government just issued grants to 6 states in the tens of millions of dollars, having to do with the commercial use of unmanned aircraft, and most of it presently in agriculture and the ability to assess not only the agricultural fields themselves, but deliver pesticides and a lot of other things. So my question is, in terms of a bright line, what is it that makes Florida Polytech different and create that excitement in the mind of high school seniors Have you looked at aeronautical engineering and the fact that people such as Price Waterhouse have identified the state of Florida as preeminent in being prepared for this kind of an industry? Have you talked about aeronautical engineering at all?
Yes, in fact, there was a lot of conversation about aeronautical engineering. In fact, we have one board member who, if he could be here and hear you say that, it would be like music to his ears, because he really encouraged the other members of the board to consider that as an area. But ultimately what happened is that kind of as we took a look at kind of what's out there within the system, and not just within the state university system, but also within universities, both public and private throughout the state, kind of the initial analysis was that that was an area that we thought at this point there was a great deal of coverage already by other universities. So that's one of the reasons that we did not immediately choose to go into that area. Second is that there's already been an announcement by the state college that's within our region that they plan to build some type of 4-year degree in that same area. So that would have been the second reason. And then third, we had to be, I think, very careful and strategic about how we build a university based upon the budget that's been developed for the university. And that is certainly more of a high-cost area, and particularly based upon the building in which we were given to start the university. The types of equipment and things that we would envision would be associated with that would not complement us as the beginning institution. So I think primarily it was based upon our analysis of the system, both public and private. Secondarily, it was that we had a state college in the area that's already announced its desire to go in that, and then it was just a cost to develop the program.
Thank you, Ava. Maybe it's a better question for Jen and others as respects the dedication of the entire state university system to aeronautical engineering and the aviation industry, because I think it's an untapped opportunity for the state of Florida in many respects. I know I'm involved right now in trying to insource a company into this state, and it has to do with aviation. So I'm kind of excited about it because I've seen the opportunity and the people who can be engaged productively, the jobs that can be created, and the economic stimulation that can occur. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Yeah, Governor Link.
And how big of this question might be better asked in a different committee, so.
That's all right. Go for it.
Please let me know if we should wait. But how big of an issue was it the fact that a state college was looking to offer a 4-year degree in that area? Because, I don't know, without even knowing who the state college is, a state college who doesn't even have that yet but has announced that they might want to go that way, compared to what we're trying to build as the premier technical, polytechnical university in our state, I would hate for you not to go after something because a state college might do it. I just can't see that would be real competition, or shouldn't be.
And it's not competition, but it is in the spirit of, okay, we're looking to work and build and cooperate and develop a good relationship with our sister state college, which is Polk State. So Polk State is there in our community. So I can't say that, oh my God, Polk State announced that they were going to offer a degree and that would have been the primary reason. I think that just in our review of the whole system. But I can say that it's important to us, particularly since we're looking for transfer students to come in, that we did take a look at what they were doing to ensure that, kind of the 4-year degrees that we were offering would complement some of the 2-year degree programs that they have. So I wouldn't want you to think that, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I understand that. I sat on that Access and Attainment Commission, and I agree we don't want to have overlapping, and we want to have a system that works well together, but given that they don't even have it yet, it might have been more appropriate, since this is a big technical area, for them to step back and let you go with it, in terms of working together. And I just wondered what was happening there, so.
And I don't know that, because we were, kind of, really new and kind of in the infancy of developing our programs and really tried to find the niche that we thought would be the thing that would distinguish the institution quickly. And I think that kind of just, and as you look across the system, both public and private, our analysis, at least immediately, was that there was just a lot of coverage in that area. Okay. And it could be something that, maybe Jan's analysis of the entire system that we could be off, but it just seemed that, particularly with Daytona Beach being so close and Embry-Riddle being right there, and then with this in our backyard with the Polk State College, it didn't seem at that time to be the best area to develop a new degree program based upon our research and the needs that we saw from Enterprise Florida, Workforce Florida, or Department of Economic Opportunity at the time.
Okay, thank you.
Ava, I have a question and then a request. So in the first year, the cost per student, based on $28 million of funding, is $56,000 per student, assuming you're 500 students.
That's correct.
Now, I don't know exactly, I suppose, I don't know what the number would be for the system in total, but I'm assuming it's probably single digit, a couple $1,000s per student, maybe?
Not a couple thousand, but definitely less than 10.
Less than 10?
For most, yeah.
Okay. And so have you and the board talked through what is the, I mean, I get it's a startup.
Sure.
So the first couple of years, you're not running with a full complement of students. But have you thought through, do you get to the point, or when do you get to the point of being as efficient as we are with the rest of the system?
What we've done is that, so we've indicated that the institution is planning to start with 500 students, and the projected growth for the institution is 5,000. And so what we've done is that we've done a model that kind of said with some limited, almost possible budgetary increases, we think that when we get to the 5,000 number, that's when we get down to the less than $10,000, 10,000 per student, and puts us more in line with the other institutions. We think that, our projected growth model is that certainly it's more than 5 years to get us to that 5,000 number, but so we think it's going to take us a few years to get there, but we certainly see our way to where we would definitely be in line with the other institutions and probably less than others, particularly when you consider kind of at the time in which we created the institution.
And that would be under what time period would you guess that would be?
If I push it way out, I think that the extended model kind of puts us way out to 10 years. I think it's a lot less. I think it's closer to the 5 to 7 year model. But I think that we certainly have projected it out like that. We understand that we started really high, and particularly if you consider that by 2016 we're at like 1244 based upon the statute, that if we go as high as 5,000, that we're somewhere, I think, beyond 5 year, less than 10, that gets us in line with the other institutions as it relates to the cost.
Okay, and I have a request, but Mr. Chairman, did you want to?
Just one quick, that's fantastic. So, and I have asked that question before.
Sure.
Can we have a copy of that projection?
Sure.
What you just said?
No
That's
problem.
fantastic for us to see how you project it, how does the income look like, and that process. Now, in my view, when you have 100% STEM, it's going to cost more, no matter how you look at it.
Right.
If you look at all of our other universities, the way they're funded is that, they have other degrees that are much less expensive, So you've done that projection. That's really be interesting for us to see that what are the costs, and so what we can expect and how does it look like. So we can work with you towards, getting to a point that if we need to segregate and say, look, this is all STEM, perhaps we ought to treat it, differently, and that's what we know. So we'd love to have that. If you have that, if you can send it to
So,
us.
Mr. Chairman, maybe just to be clear, maybe between now and our next meeting, we could have received that so we could talk about it.
Sure, that's no problem at all. We can do that projection.
Governor Frost, yes, ma'am.
Question. First of all, I think we have to treat this university a little differently from all the others, because as you did say, Maury, it's going to cost more money, and I don't think you can just continuously equate a 50,000 student university with a football team with a little gem that we are now supposed to be developing. So I think we have to keep that in mind. But I have a question about the faculty. They did mention 3 levels of what you're looking for, some just fresh out of school with a PhD, some with 6 or 7 years experience, and others, I guess you have 1 or 2 that you're hiring thus far. And of course, these are going to be the people that are going to help you build your curriculum from my point of view. I would like to see what emphasis are you going to be using to get not that first level, not that second level, but that third level. Those that already have published or could bring in grants, And when you have a superstar professor, as your faculty knows that you've hired, every kid in this state is going to want to go there or out of state. Students follow a professor if they are well recognized and they can say, I was mentored by that professor. So I want to know, I know you have a few now you've hired that are on sort of like an undergraduate level almost, some with a little bit of experience, but you only mentioned 2 thus far that have a PhD, that have already world recognized with funding, et cetera. And is anyone going to be bringing funding to this university? That's very important. You get a good grant, an NIH grant from some other place, you're coming in with money. So for me, the student population will start to go up, and you will have a different kind of a student body as well as a professional body.
The way we are attracting the full professors with reputation is one-on-one, by visiting those we want to target, or going to conferences where these people are presenting, and we know that these are the people we want to bring in. One of the professors we hired is bringing research with him.
How much money?
Quite a bit.
I mean, I think these are important questions to answer. You could get a very famous guy in that's about to retire, that's published a few papers, but, you know.
Actually,
okay.
even some of the ones we are hiring at the middle level, they will bring some money, but not a lot of money with them.
Okay.
You know, but in answer to your question, we are really targeting those of the higher level, one-on-one, by visiting them, talking to them, telling them what we are doing, going to their conference presentation, supporting, the university by saying this is what we are interested to do, this is where we want to go with you. So, yeah, we are addressing that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So, Ava, just to be clear, my question on the cost versus the students, I'm not suggesting the answer should get to the average of the rest of the system. I'm not sure what it should be. I'm just more interested in where does it get to?
Sure.
And what's the path to get there? Whatever the final answer is, probably, I think you're right. It's not to get to that average, but it shouldn't stay at 56,000, obviously, either. So, it's somewhere lower than that. Now, here's my request. So if I look at the legislation, because what I think the responsibility of this committee is to be receiving updates to ensure that the university is assuring us that you're on track to meet the requirements of the legislation. And so you read it, and there's really 6 components to the legislation, and I'm sure that you are actively and frequently reporting to the Board of Trustees. Where are you, how are you tracking? And so what I'd like to request is that as you come in to our meetings, each meeting, that we receive from you that the trustees have blessed is a green, yellow, red assessment on each of these items. So green, you're on track. Why do you think you're on track? These are judgment calls, but yellow is, well, we're not exactly on track, but we think we have a plan, and it's very attainable and reasonable to think we should be getting back to green when we do this and this and this. Red is, it's warning, we're really concerned, we're pulling the fire alarm, and we're taking the following steps to get out of red status. And so it's not a green, that means we're finished. It's just green, you're on track, so that December 31st, 2016, we're good to go, because I think it would help our committee and the board just see a visual of we're getting a report that's where you should be, or we have some concern. So I'd ask you or Chairman Goodell if that's a reasonable request, and if you would like to suggest I word it differently, I'm happy to hear that too. But it's not too complicated, but I think it'll just give us something to assess where you are. Is that, Mr. Chairman?
So, Mr. Chairman, we currently provide a monthly report to the board. So what I'll do is I'll work with staff on seeing whether we need to modify that report and work with the committee to ensure we're providing providing the information, that you'd like to see about our progress. So certainly, I guess my first thought is that we'll just add that into the current report. But even in addition to that, I want to make sure that what we're currently providing you is what you really would like to
That'd
see.
be fine. I mean, there's just 6 things, and if we see a piece of paper that has 6 items and all are green, and here's why they're green, well, then I feel really good that we're on track. And if there's a little yellow, it's not that that's a disaster, but it just means there's something to be worked on. You see some red, and we all should be concerned.
Great. I know there's one thing I did want to mention, in response to your concern, Governor Frost, is that, as we look at different faculty, and the reason I'm so pleased that even at this point that we are able to bring faculty who can bring research with them is that it really is so many of the research grants are from the federal government. You have to be accredited in order to receive them. So the fact that we've been able to, attract faculty who have found creative ways to get grants in is good, and we certainly are very focused on bringing in other upper level, very experienced faculty to complement the faculty that we currently have in place.
Governor Colson?
Ava, could you take a second and tell me about philanthropy? Where are you on your fundraising this year? How much money have you raised in the past? And, I'd be interested.
Sure. So USF Poly, we had a foundation that was the foundation for USF had a section where those who wanted to give to USF Poly, had funds that were available. So the idea was that those donors had to be contacted and asked, would you prefer your funds go to USF, to Florida Poly, or would you prefer to have the funds come back to you? So we did start with some money in the foundation based upon the funds that were basically transferred over to Florida Poly after the contact with the donor. So I would say that there were a couple of $5 million gifts that were available to the university with kind of very specific donor intent that either have already been transferred or we're still working through the negotiations to get the final one transferred. And then there were several other gifts that were there that were available for scholarships. So let's say that when we came in, there may have been several $100,000s that were already sitting and waiting for scholarship. We started our foundation last year, and the foundation is certainly well on its way to honoring the vision of the board to bring in that first class of 500 all with scholarships. So I would say that kind of based upon the fundraising, and what they've done is they've said, okay, we're going to set a much higher goal and anticipating that we want to continue to have scholarships available for our students. Now, so they're close to being a third of the way there for what they see that we need for that first class of 500.
And so what have you raised? What is that third?
That exact number, I don't know, and I can get that number for you, but the number that I would say is that we see that $2.5 million is approximately what we need for at least to honor the scholarships that have been offered for that first class.
So so $800,000, $850,000?
Right, we're very close to that. Right, about in that area, reaching the goal for the 2.5.
One observation that I vividly remember the presentations made to our board by all the community leaders that came to the board and said, we need this, we're going to support this. And I think one comment I might add, well, it's time to do it. It's time to write the checks. The building's built, and the class is going to start, and some of those $1 million, there are a lot of naming opportunities on that building, and some of those $1 million gifts need to start coming in. The community kind of promises that, so I would hope that would happen. I know it's hard to sell a new university, but I think there was a lot of enthusiasm, so that's just an observation.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I agree with you that we do have a very supportive community. I think that it's taken the foundation a moment to get up and get going as a brand new entity and as a brand new university. We certainly have a great story to tell and a very supportive community, and we're out beating the bushes to get the money raised for the scholarship. So thank you for that comment. I'm sure it's very encouraging for the folks within that region. Mr. Chairman, just Chairman of the committee, just a couple of things.
Got a lot of Mr. Chairmans here, don't we?
I think I'll do a different octave so you know which one I'm referring to. Just a couple of things I would like to tell you that we're doing that I think would be of interest, and how I think we're going to deal with some of the concerns, particularly as it relates to building out our programs. And one is that we do have a real big industry focus, and we've gone out very purposely to develop industry relationships so that as our faculty builds the curriculum, they have conversations with industry to ensure that we're developing a curriculum and will produce students that industry will want to hire. So we've already talked about our advisory boards, joint research opportunities for our students, because we want them to have an opportunity to have internships, but also just an opportunity for our faculty to engage with their staff so we can ensure we're on the same track. We're pleased to report that at least at this point we have engaged 25 different partners for our institution. Harris was one of our first partners, and one that has been very beneficial so far in having our faculty engage with their industry. Pleased that Bright House and Microsoft have also joined us as partners, and really see this as a way to ensure that we have the kind of relationships that will result in research, that will result in opportunities for our students, as well as opportunities for growth and support financially from our partners as we continue to build our institution. I thought it would be important to share with you our facilities plan so you have an idea of what we'll have in place and what we kind of see as phase one. And some of this is certainly guided by what was in the legislation and the benchmarks that were established for us. So you know that we have the Innovation, Science, and Technology building that is on campus. We have an admissions center that is on campus that actually opened in November, which is the building where our admissions office is located, and where families and students and guidance counselors come and get a feel for what we're building on our campus and have an opportunity to take a tour of the facility. We'll also have a facility available for food services and bookstores, and a bookstore and mail that will be available on campus as a part of phase one and in the fall of 2014. We are in the process of building a residence hall, I think the statute said, which have at least 190 plus beds. The proposed residence hall is going to have 219 beds. It's a unique public-private partnership that we have entered into with the developer, where we've actually leased the land and the developer and provide the pad, and the developer is bringing the costs together to build a facility and recover their investment when the students come and pay their dorm rents. We had about 7 different developers who participated in a request for bid, and we did land with one. So construction is out there, and we'll open our first residence hall in the fall of 2014. I think that as we look down the road, we envision that we will have some type of academic research center as well as a student achievement center. If you go to the next slide, it kind of talks a little bit about phase one and kind of the money that's associated with that, and kind of what we see as phase one projects, as well as the phase two projects that we just discussed. So we figure we'll grow to the needs of a second dorm. We'll have a student achievement center, which is really what was part of the legislation, as well as an applied research center. I think that on the next slide we just have some pictures of the development on campus. That's the primary building, the Innovation, Science, and Technology building, where we have constructed our labs as well as our teaching rooms. So that will be the primary building for our administration as well as for our students. And then also I've included copies of our admissions center to give you an idea of the building where we currently have folks on campus and where we are receiving students. I think that as I think about the institution that we're building, we certainly see ourselves as a nimble 21st century university that we have taken advantage of the fact that we have a brand new clean pad, and we just kind of really have chosen to distinguish ourselves with technology, so that as we're building a university that's kind of really technologically advanced period within the growth of the country or the world, that we develop a pad that can change as technology changes. So therefore we feel that we can be that nimble institution that grows and changes as those concentrations might change based upon the interest. You know, I tell folks all the time that what I'm hoping is that as an institution that as an economic development office in Pensacola, Florida is looking to bring a technology company to the state of Florida, that economic development officer can say, well, you know, we have Florida Poly and they can produce the kind of workforce that you need to attract high-tech development to our state. So we're happy to answer any further questions and certainly pleased to continue to work with your staff. You know, we take their advice and understand that we must grow and change, and certainly have made some adjustments based upon some of the suggestions that they provided. But we're well on our way with good faculty, good students, and good programs.
Thank you. Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Chair.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations on what you've done so far, Ava. A lot of hard work. Just on that last point, this is a great time, I think, to go to technology businesses and talk to them about relocating. We've got development space here. I mean, on the ground floor, it takes a while to move things anyway. And I know you got more than enough to do, but this would be the ideal time to start reaching out to technology businesses across the country. I would think the governor's office or his development group would want to participate. And we've got a real opportunity that we could sell to people here and get them in on the ground floor. And once this gets up and running and the place gets developed, there won't be all that opportunity. So somehow, with everything else you got to do, maybe we could help with the governor's office or whoever. But this seems like, to me, a real opportunity.
Right. No, thank you very
Mr.
much.
Chair? Mr. Chair?
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, Governor Link.
A follow-up, and feel free to stop me if it's something that everybody else already knows and I should just find out offline. I'm happy to do that. But your operating budget, the one that had a lot of carryover or carry forward, how was that developed? It just seemed unusual to me that there was an operating budget that you ended up using so little of, that you were able to transfer so much over, and that, you know, same thing the next year. How is that done?
So with the legislation that created the institution, it created an opportunity for the next 10 years to use carry forward money, use money that wasn't used as a part of the operating budget for the operation of the institution. That money, which after the end of the fiscal year becomes carry forward money, could be used to help build out the facility. So that's a special opportunity as a brand new institution that was provided.
Right.
So
Now, I understand why you get to do
Sure.
it, but how did somebody originally decide, and I know I don't have these numbers exactly right, but 22 million, if that was the number that was in your budget, and, you know, we have a $22 million operating budget, and you ended up using 5 of that, say, and so you carried forward the rest. Where did that original 22 million estimate budget number come from?
So that number predates me. My board
Because it
chair
just
has
seems that somebody was way off the mark, unless it's just,
When the original building was contracted, remember, it was coming out of the ground when this university was made independent, and this board was given the opportunity to take that transfer and run it. The bottom line to this is there was not adequate funding created when the original building was designed and under construction from either PICO funds or from the county or the city or from philanthropic donors to complete what was under construction. So the plan was that the university would use whatever operating funds that we did not use to complete the plans that were under construction. So you have to look at it, the way the board's always looked at this, is that, you know, it kind of in 3 different phases of development. You know, first of all, plan the university and complete the construction, which is a requirement under the Senate bill. In order to do that, if we'd spent all $28 million or $22 million in the first year on operations and academics, we couldn't have completed the facilities that were under construction. So we had to go slowly, plan to execute, design the academic curriculum, finish the building. The second phase, which is what we've now been able to do that with past carry forward money. We have it in the bank. We don't contract about anything unless we have the money in the bank, and we've done that. So we can complete the plans that were originally anticipated to be completed. The contracts have been let. We can now fund them because of that carry forward. The second phase now still involves completion of the campus. You have a building, and then you have a campus that's still, because there's 170 plus acres there, that needs additional capital in order to complete that. And so that's what we're doing in this second phase, building the academic platform, bringing the faculty in, funding the academic programs, and completing the campus, which we are under contract to do. We need that carryover money in years 2 and 3 of our existence in order to complete that. So that's why when you look at this, it's easy to take 28 million and divide by 500 students, but that's intellectually dishonest. Because what you have to do is say part of that is going to the capital requirements to build the university. What we do at the board is look very carefully, and we will in the future, how much operating money we actually are applying to academic endeavors and how much go to capital. That's the metric that we're following very closely. And the other is to make sure that we don't do anything at the board to commit taxpayer money beyond 2016 that puts us in a position, or puts you in a position not to be able to evaluate and measure what we've been able to do.
So it really isn't, and because I think I must not be asking the question properly,
I
but
think-
what I'm trying to find out is, if I do a budget for my office, and if I had an operating line item, in theory, at the end of the year, hopefully I was really close, and maybe I was able to save some things and be efficient in other areas, but I would not expect out of 22 million or, that 17 million of it I was able to save. So it didn't seem like a real number.
I have no idea where the 22 or 28 million came from, other than there was an original plan. There was an original plan, remember, by UCF Poly, that was adopted, that was given to us to review and evaluate, which we did, and we made subsequent changes in how we wanted to build the academic platform, how we wanted to execute the plan for the university.
So you all had nothing to do with that operating dollar that was given to you by the legislature or by USF?
Right.
No, by the legislature.
So historically, let's talk about it. So before there was Florida Poly, there was a USF Lakeland that became USF Poly, and that entity had a budget. And that budget was around $14 or $15 million, as I best can anticipate. So I think that in the minds of the legislature, when they were building the institution, it's like, okay, well, if we go with how much it took, $14 or $15 million, to operate the branch campus before it would become an independent institution, and we know that this this new institution is going to build out, I think an extra amount of money was added on top of that, with the idea you'd be able to use that money to continue to help grow the campus.
Okay, so it wasn't something you all created and said, this is what we estimate for our
No.
operating budget. You were handed it, and then you
Well, we
just
were handed
figured it out.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it was after looking at the budget that was already in place for USF,
Okay.
Lakeland/Poly campus.
All right, thanks.
Governor, like that, so does that answer that question? But I do think it's an intellectually honest question to ask, if we have a certain amount of money being spent and a certain number of students, that how much are we spending per student? So I'm not sure I would agree that that's an intellectually dishonest question, but...
Well, but I think that what we focus on, and what we'll continue to focus on as we grow the university, every time we begin to expand beyond this initial phase, we're going to look very carefully at how much this is going to cost per student, et cetera, and how much capital requirements it's going to take to provide the education, basically to provide the facilities that we need, et cetera. And we look at that completely. There's a cost of delivering the education, there's a cost of housing the education. What we have to do in direct response to that is that we have to find ways of attracting that capital, either through industry or through philanthropic efforts, so that it's not a burden on the taxpayers of the state of Florida at the kind of numbers that you're using. For me, to think about continuing to fund at a level of $25,000 or $50,000 a student is just a non-starter. But if that's what the numbers are, as you break them down between academic and capital, we have to figure out how to fund that capital.
Governor Chopra.
First of all, Ava, thank you for hosting me and your staff. I enjoyed my visit with the faculty as well as the facility. My question is actually quite simple. You've chosen .org. I'm assuming if I did .edu, I would still get to that point. Is that correct?
Well, actually, as an unaccredited institution, we are not allowed to apply for the .edu at this point.
I see.
So it is that we've chosen .org, And believe me, we've worked with the Board of Governors staff and worked to try to find different ways we could get to .edu, but it's really not, and we're hoping that if, in that whole SACS accreditation process, that maybe somewhere along the way they will allow us to do that. But at this point, it's because of the rules that relate to the application of .edu.
If I may ask another quick one. The incoming student body, the demographic, the quality looks very, very good. As far as scholarships go, are you promising certain things? Is that helping? What is essentially your conversation with prospective students?
I think, I toy whether I should answer or I should bring Scott to answer. Scott, why don't you come and answer the question as the authority?
Just to give you an idea, when we announced the scholarships back in August, we saw a surge in applications and a surge in inquiries, so most certainly it has helped. But other reasons out there, students, we're doing focus groups now for some of our new branding efforts, and what the students are telling us is that they really want to belong to a Polytechnic, and they're really buying into that. And, brands are mirrors, and students want to see themselves in a brand, and they're seeing it in a Polytechnic.
Okay, are there any other questions from the board? So I think, Ava, there's two things in addition to an excellent presentation, and thank you, two takeaways. One is for Chairman Hussaini for us to receive the projection of cost per student and how you forecasted that. And then also at our next in-person meeting, in your update to include a green, yellow, red update on the legislative requirements individually themselves.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to also get another information. On the first meeting we had, I made it very clear, because this is the business I'm in, I asked a very specific question for the people that worked there at the time. You were not there, and neither Chairman Goodell, he was not there. I asked the question, do you have enough money in the budget to finish the building with the budget you have? And the answer was yes. So I'd like to get if you can give me some information on that. So this was how much the budget, this is how much it actually cost us, so we know that's the difference, that how you're funding it through operation to finish the building and the infrastructure. Thank you.
So we probably should adjourn soon because your list is getting longer, Ava.
I appreciate that.
Are there any other questions? So those three things, and thank you for being here and appreciate the update. And I think this committee is adjourned. Mr. Chairman, do you want to?
Yes, let's take maybe 8 minutes break, and 10, we'll get back and get going with the next committee. Thank you.